Okay. All right. Buyer guide. And then even before that, if you're thinking, Tana, what exactly is a buyer guide is typically, it could be a one pager, but it might, for some people, it's a little bit longer, maybe 2 to 3 pages. And it's typically like a PDF or like some kind of file that you created that explains to a buyer the buying process. It may be something as simple as like a map to show what the buyer process is. It may be more thorough, where it's like small paragraphs that say, hey, step one in the process is linked, step two, step three, right? It may be both combined together. It may have an extra page where it says, why I'm the perfect choice to help you with buying your new home. So it's however you want it to be, but either way, it is some kind of file or document that you created that walks a buyer through purchasing a home. That is a buyer guide. Now, the key, and then this is where we turn it up a bit, is we take it from being a buyer guide, because a lot of times we create it and then we like, okay, I have it, but what do I do with it? Who do I give it to? When do I talk about it? Right. So this is kind of like the elevated next step of that. You create the buyer guide. Now, this is how you get it to create appointments. That is the most important thing. That's the most important thing. You have to have conversations with people. So let's get into why it's important. And I think describing and explaining to you all how your buyer guide can create more appointments, which can get you clients and then closings, is going to motivate you if you haven't created a buyer guide yet, or you haven't dug into it since you created it really, to really utilize it, because it's something that you already have. You don't have to do a thousand things if you leverage the 10 things that you already have. That's the idea behind this. All right, so we're going to talk about how to use your buyer guide during the consultation. We're going to talk about how to pre-frame your value before your meeting. So thinking about, sometimes you guys ask, what questions do I ask on a consultation, or what do I talk about in my home buying workshops? Your buyer guide, sorry, that's my son's iPad. Your buyer guide should be the pre-frame. So it should be the questions that you discuss on your consultation. It should be coming from your buyer guide, right? Because you already have the information there. We're going to be talking about qualifying buyers, and how to use your buyer guide to make sure the people you're talking to are actually qualified, so we're not wasting time. And then the words and the phrases that we need to be saying during that consultation, and really to anyone when we're talking about real estate, because sometimes, and I know I've done it in the past, is you'll talk to someone about real estate and then you say, okay, so let me know. Of course, here's my business card. Just let me know if you ever think about buying and selling, call me. Never works. Almost 9 times out of 10, they forget, you forget, it's not an exchange. So what phrases and verbiage are we using so that we are locking in an appointment? Because appointments create closings. We don't want them as just content. This is the way to convert. So if any of us have been feeling like, oh, I'm getting leads and I'm having kind of conversations and people are kind of in my DMs or texting me because they know I'm a realtor now, but it's not turning into actual qualified leads and conversations, this is how you're going to do this in this class. The psychology behind buyers. 88% of buyers use real estate agents. Actually, I've never met a buyer who bought a home and didn't use an agent, to be honest. But statistics say 88% use agents. But they don't just use agents because they're posting on Instagram, right? Which we know, because if you're like, I haven't gotten a client off Instagram, you're probably like, well, yeah, I'm posting, but I haven't got a client. So they don't just post you because they have access to you or because they see you. They use you as their agent because you, for some reason, you've given them confidence and now they have confidence in you. That's why they locked in. That's why they booked their consultation. So if you're asking yourself, I'm posting content, but I'm not really converting them into clients, think about that too. Is your content making them feel confident in the process? Is it giving them enough value? And is it giving them enough information to empower them to take a next step? They don't need to know the whole mortgage process, but is your content strong enough and valuable enough that it's making them confident enough to say, hey, she know what she's talking about. He know what he's talking about. I'm confident enough to have a further conversation with them. All right, so that's 88% of buyers, but 91% of buyers are actually going to reuse you. So if you've had any closings in the past, whether it's one, two, whether you had a lease closing, they are more likely to use you. The issue is that we're not following up enough with them. We don't have them on smart plans. We're not making those check-in phone calls, right? We're not telling them happy anniversary for your home. But when we do, 91% will use us again when they feel educated and protected. So if you need a motivation to make sure any past clients that you've had are going to reuse you for their next real estate transaction, this is your number to say, hey, I need to go in and make sure they're on a smart plan. I need to make sure they're on a text reminder to text them for their birthday or whatever the case may be. Throughout the home buying process, buyers say that the cost and the actual process itself are the most stressful parts of buying. They're always like, well, what happens next? And who do I send the money to? And how do I do that? And what happens for appraisal? And what if I don't like the house after the inspection? So the process itself is stressful. And then the money part, the financial part is the most stressful. But if you can be the agent who is educating them on those things and empowering them and making them feel confident, like, hey, I may not know the whole process, but I know a little bit more, that's how they're going to trust you. Not the pretty pictures, not the nice headshots, not the get ready with me's, right? They need to trust that you can help them with the two most stressful things. This is why a lot of agents post about grants and financial, like the financial process, the mortgage process. And that's also why they talk about the different steps in the actual home buying process. Because if I can make you feel a little bit more at ease at those two things, I most likely can lock you in. This is good. I hope y'all taking notes. It's going to be so good. All right, quickly, why buyer guides work? Again, if you don't have one, this is why you need one. When people think about buying a home, and if you purchased a home or have a goal to, you know how emotional that feels. It feels like, oh, I can't wait to, or I have a goal, or I wrote it on my vision board, right? It's usually attached to some kind of emotion. However, once they have a buyer guide, that emotion then goes into logic. It's one thing to say, I can't wait to buy a home. But once someone gives me the information, the facts, the next steps, now it turns into logic. Now I can take action on it. That's why a lot of times I say, I mean, I help people buy homes, but I help people with their goals, right? That's really what we do. Because if you can become the agent that helps someone with their goals, they're going to love you forever as long as you're doing your due diligence. Buyer guides replace fear with structure. I'm scared. I don't think I have the right credit score. I don't think I have enough money saved. That's all fear. That's all limiting beliefs. But once we give them that buyer guide, we give them structure. Because even if they don't have a qualifying credit score, now they have the structure and the information to get it. Again, you're helping them with their goal. They're locking in. Buyer guides help you show up as an expert and as the authority in real estate, even before you have a conversation. And it moves your leads from browsing to decision readiness, right? So again, from that emotion to that logic. I've been scrolling Zillow. I have been looking at houses on Zillow or on Instagram. I've been looking at, when realtors post homes. But once they have the structure, now they can make a decision to actually take a next step. So here's how you're going to do. These are the actual action steps. If y'all don't do anything else, write it down, take a picture, a screenshot, a reminder to rewatch this class but this is so good. If I would have done these things in the beginning myself, I probably could have started producing the first 2 years when I first started in real estate instead of having two closings in 2 years. Okay, when I was at my other brokerage. So when someone schedules, right, a buyer consultation, let's start there. Say, for instance, you do have buyer consultations, or you have had some, but you feel like, okay, sometimes people do book, but I don't feel like I'm maximizing that enough to where they're converting. So after they book, you want to send them the guide first. Now you can either do this, there's so many ways to do this, but say if you're using Calendly, I'm not sure if it's on the free version, probably the paid now, but you can send an email, like a prior email before the consultation, before the call or Zoom, however you choose, and you can send them information. So like you might say, hey, we'll be talking about your credit score, qualifying credit score. Here's the website to check your credit. That's something that I learned a little bit further along the way once I kept having consultations and everybody's like, oh, I use Credit Karma or oh, I don't know my credit score. So that's something that I later implemented where I send them the link. I think it's annual credit report or something.com. That's something that I implemented, but also sending the guide because immediately once they get that guide and they're reading it, they're like, okay, right? They're like, okay, I know a little bit more now. They can also prepare questions in advance, right? So all of this is helping you. It's your pre-consult filter. But also, if someone gets that email with the kind of the next steps, things to do before the call, and they don't take heed to it, that kind of informs you about this client. It doesn't mean that it's not a good lead, but if someone has a goal and then you give them the tools and the resources and they don't take action on it, that probably tells you maybe that's not the client for me, or maybe they're not really as serious. So you can kind of weed that out from the beginning. You send your guide, send them a quick email, say, hey, be sure to review sections 1, 2, 3 before our call, and then have them reflect on 2 to 3 questions before the meeting. Now, this is not when they schedule the consultation because you don't want too many barriers. You want them to just schedule it and that's it. But after they schedule it, you send an email, whether it's through Calendly or, once you receive the notification through Calendly, maybe you just want to send it via Gmail. That's up to you. Um, but have this email, it should be a template that you just send out every time you get that notification that someone scheduled a consultation. This is an email that should automatically go out. You should not have to rewrite it every time. But why are we doing this? You'll have higher quality appointments. They come ready. My appointments, my consultations are only 15 minutes. A lot of times they're not even 15. They usually end up taking 10 minutes, sometimes shorter because I know what questions to ask. But you have higher quality appointments because the person knows what to ask you about. The person already did the prerequisites when you're on the call and they don't know their credit score, but now they're trying to figure out the credit score to try to log into the app. They forgot the app password, or they don't like it's just. But if you get on that call and that person knows their credit score and it's from a credible source, you can give so much more information much faster, right? You can get through a little bit more than if they don't know their credit score. Faster trust because you've already given them right value. And again, sending them the guide doesn't mean nothing. It's just it's a guide. It's not costing. I don't charge for my guide. It's almost like a lead magnet. It's to get the lead to use you, right? So I don't charge for it, but they trust you because they say, oh, Charlie gave me all this value already and I haven't even used her. Thank you. And shorter sales cycles. So when I'm on that call, if I'm able to ask the questions and get the information I need, the cycle from consultation to closing table is shorter because we've had more precise questioning versus I see you guys' hands versus I'm on a call, they don't know their credit score, they don't know how much money they have saved, like they don't know all of that. Now we have to have another call or some kind of follow-up to figure that out. So we've lost a week or two when we could have already been getting a pre-approval. Yep, Charlie, you can unmute.
Hey, Tiana, sorry about this.
Hey, that's okay.
I wanted to know like examples of reflection questions that you would get that you had worked with.
Example of a,
The reflection question.
oh, okay, okay. So I may say something like, what is your motivation for purchasing a home right now? Or what has been a barrier in the past to purchasing a home? Right, because that gives you a lot of information. Even those 2 questions, even if you just use those two, because number one, they may say, "Oh, I'm moving closer to family," or "My kid's going to college." That builds like that trust, and you can use that conversation with them on the phone as well. I went to a
Okay.
workshop before, and they talked about how maybe realtors don't talk enough about the life part of buying a house. We always talk about the transactions and the money and the savings and stuff. But a lot of times, like this is going to change somebody's life. So even just knowing I've had consultations and I mean, mind you, I've never met these people before in my life. They're like, yes, my son just went away to college yesterday. I just dropped him off and she's crying on the phone. But now I get to have a heart to heart and say, hey, like my son is 7. I can't even imagine when he goes to college. But I'm so, proud of you for moving on to the next chapter of your life, now that you're, empty nesters. Like, so it just helps build connection, I find. And again, build that trust. And then the second question, what has been your barrier in the past? This is where you find out if they've ever been in a home buying journey before. You can find out have they used another agent before? How did that process go? And it's not to condemn the agent. is to say, hey, if this person says, yeah, I used the agent before, but they never returned my phone calls. Well, you know, as an agent, to number one, say, hey, well, my business hours are such and such. I'm very responsive. And then it helps you say, hey, with this client, in order to really lock them in, I need to make sure I'm really responsive to them and, making sure I'm answering at the appropriate time. So it just gives you a little bit more information. Even asking them their previous agent. Sometimes they say I was under contract. I've had clients that said I was under contract before, and because the lender didn't ask me for whatever documents, like we had to come out of contract, I lost my deposit. Again, that's information for you to say, hey, we need to make sure that they got a good lender, the P's and Q's, everything like that.
Okay, so I was under the assumption that when you say
Uh-huh.
require 2 to 3 reflection questions before meeting, that would come from them.
Oh, I said they can write questions too, but not that bullet point really isn't for that. It's for them to kind of get to thinking. So when you're on the phone, they
Before you
already
start
are thinking.
talking.
Exactly,
Understood.
exactly.
Okay.
But it's nothing. You can also add that. You can say, hey, like at the end of your email or your message, you can say, be sure to write out any questions that you have. But what I found is that if you're doing it right, your consultation is asking the important questions. At the end of the call, like before you get off the call, you say, hey, do you have any other questions for me? They'll be like, no, like you really went through
Mm-hmm.
everything. You answered all my
Mm-hmm.
questions. So
Right.
hopefully, like that will be the response that they really don't have any questions unless it's something super specific. But for the most part, going through your guide and being thorough with your questions, they probably won't have too many questions.
Thank you. Thank you for
You're
that.
so welcome. Of course, of course. Marcia, uh-huh.
I had two questions. One is when you're doing this, at what point do you send them the consumer information statement for them to sign?
You don't have to do that for a consultation. That is if they now come to you and they're like, I'm ready to move forward, whether
Okay.
buying, selling, leasing, then you make sure your consumer notice is in your packet that you sent to them.
Okay. And the second question, you mentioned that they should know their credit score. But it's
Correct.
my understanding that the mortgagers, they use a different credit score than you would use from a Credit Karma or anything. So is there one in particular that you think would be more advantageous for them to use that would be close enough for what the mortgager uses?
That's a good question, but honestly, and what I found is that different lenders, I also feel like use different things to find out the credit score. But as long as they have a reputable source, so like sometimes their bank, it will be on their bank statement. They can go to their bank app, maybe like Rocket Mortgage, annualcreditreport.com. That's really good. It gives them their actual entire report and their credit score. That usually does enough. I've never used one of those, and the credit score was so far off once they talk to the lender. So
Okay.
they,
Thank
they
you.
seem to be pretty good. But Credit Karma usually is a huge difference by the time they get to a lender. So that's just why I don't really use that one. But otherwise, I've never had a lender say like, oh no, their bank said it was a 660 and it's actually a 500. I've never had that happen. But that's a great question though.
Thank
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, I see some comments in the chat. Boo, boo, boo. Perfect. What if they ask a question you don't know the answer to? My favorite thing, because I don't be knowing y'all. I really don't be know, especially when I didn't have listings before and people ask me questions about selling the house. Just say like, oh hey, let me write that down and I'll get that question back to you before end of business today. And that's it. You hang up, you go find the answer, and then I'm telling you, when you respond back to them, whether email, phone call, the phone call is the best. But when you call them back and say, hey, I found out the answer to that question, they're gonna love you for life. They're like, wait, and she followed up. She actually gave me that answer. So don't feel like you're, lose points by not knowing every single answer. That's not really the expectation, but the expectation is that like you do come back to them. If you say you're going to give them an answer, do follow up with that answer. You can ask the coaches or be honest. I don't know. Exactly. Yep. They do not mind you saying you're going to come back to them. The FICO score, be honest. For sure. Yep. Yep. You're on the right track. Okay. So, boom. This is the pre-consult. And again, this also helps the issue of feeling like I'm having conversations with people, but I'm not getting leads. That's because you didn't have a quality appointment. You weren't using your buyer guide. If you feel like you're having all these conversations in the DMs, this is also a point of why I do not do a whole bunch in the DMs about a real estate transaction. I'll talk to my, ideal clients or my possible leads in the DMs about other stuff. Like they're like, oh, where'd you get that shirt from? Or then where do you work out at? Like we can have conversations, but once it gets real estate related, almost immediately we're like, oh, okay, schedule here. This is a much easier, more efficient way for us to have a conversation. Because then I can make sure it's a quality lead instead of answering 100 questions in my DMs. I don't even know if this person is super serious and like the whole thing. So that's that. Number one, use the buyer guide as your pre-consult filter. You are sending these things prior to your consultation. I love this. Anyone unwilling to review education isn't ready for representation. Exactly. If they didn't read the buyer guide, they didn't check their credit score, it's like, is that person really serious? Strategy number two, use your buyer guides to pre-frame your value. Pre-frame, think of like outline. Outline your value. Think about why am I valuable to this client on this phone call. All right, your buyer guide should have language in there that tells you you are the risk manager. So when we think of risk in a buy-in transaction, you think of inspection, appraisal, you think of it taking too long, right? Maybe they're under a time crunch. So what language in your buyer guide do you have that's already addressing those issues? Negotiation strategies. That's also important because people will, oh, if I see a house for 300,000, is it realistic if I put an offer in for 250,000? You be like, girl, no. But sometimes it is, right? But the majority of the time it's not. But is the language in your buyer guide already kind of addressing how you negotiate? It may say something like, together, your lender and I will determine a strategy to get you the best price and assistance for your home. Right. So it doesn't have to be specific, but the language should already present that because once a lead hears me say that, like, okay, they're going to come up with a strategy for me. They're like, okay, I trust them. They already got this handled. They're a team working for me or working with me. Financial protector, that can be something as easy like I have lenders that I can recommend you to because a lot of times people don't know who to use as a lender. And then process architect. Are you going to guide them through the process? You want your lead to know, I am here to guide you every single step of the way. Even for inspection, I'm not the inspector, but I can refer you some inspection companies you may want to use. And then after you receive the inspection report, I will be there to, comb through the inspection report with you. Same thing for appraisal. Your lender will provide a appraiser, and then you and I will go through the appraisal report. And exactly, I don't need an agent, I need this agent. What separated you from the other agents that they've seen or heard of? And this pre-frames your value because this is language you should already have in your guide. So it's not necessarily things you need to say on the call, but if on the call you ask your questions and they read this in advance, they already see that you do these things. So it's going to stop them from having to ask these questions on the phone as well. They don't have to say, hey, what about when I get an inspection? Are you going to help me with that? Do you help with that? Because they already read it in your guide. All right, strategy 3. Your buyer guide is now going to turn into an appointment trigger. Instead of let me know if you have questions, and actually that emotionally triggers me when I hear that. It's like, yes, they have questions. As the agent, you should be the one that's being so proactive. You're already answering their questions and following up with answers to questions before they even ask. So do not say, let me know if you have questions. You're going to say, after page 6, most buyers realize that they want a custom payment strategy, right? Or once you review closing costs, we'll map your best offer structure. This is telling them in advance. This is when you'll have a question, and then this is what we'll do. So again, it's about being proactive. Will they still have questions about something else at some point? Absolutely. But let me know if you have questions. You're just so open-ended. And let's be honest, the home buying process is overwhelming. So here I am on a phone call, 10, 15 minutes with you. You've given me a lot of good information, but it's a lot of information nonetheless. So if you say, let me know if you have questions, they're like, Okay, like I will, because they know they will, but just at that moment they can't really think of it. So you're already telling them in advance, hey, after page six, such and such, once you review your closing costs, that's how we figure out which offer will work best for you. You might have had this experience in like PC. You come to PC, you on board or join the brokerage, and it's so much information, it's like overwhelming. And then they say, okay, let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, I got questions. How I get lead, how I get to a closing, right? You have so many questions. But instead, you may have preferred somebody to say, hey, once you get whatever, this packet, then XYZ. That may have been more helpful than just saying, let me know when you have questions. Strategy number four, you're going to use your guide and control the first appointment. You can skip the basics because, again, they've already read it. They've already checked their credit. They've already done whatever your prerequisites are. They've already done them. Instead, you can focus on your offer strategy. You can focus on budget optimization. So you can have that conversation with them as well. Risk mitigation and market positioning. And what those all things mean are like, nine times out of 10, they're going to give you some information about their finances, right, on this phone call. And so then you can give them some, again, it's general because they probably, maybe they don't have a pre-approval yet. So you're not the lender, you're not the money person, but you can give them some concept of saying like, hey, okay, you feel comfortable. You have saved, maybe the person said, okay, I have 10K saved. Now you can tell them, all right, if you have 10K saved, based on the information you share with me, it sounds like we may be able to qualify you for the Philly First Home Grant, and then we could use that to decrease your out-of-pocket costs. But we'll consult with the lender, get your pre-approval, and then we can, figure out your budget. But you can't have the conversations about these things if you're still talking about like the basic things. Market positioning. Someone will say, I want to live in Mount Airy. I only want to spend $250,000. What kind of home can I get? Well, because you've been on the MLS for 5 minutes every day, you know that in Mount Airy, $250,000 may or may not get them what they want, depending on their criteria. That number looks a little bit more like 300, 305, 315. But you can't have that conversation if you aren't doing your part, but also if you're spending so much of the consultation on other things. Shorter meetings, higher close rates, faster signed agreements. Because there's no way you're presenting this much value, answering all these questions with a buyer guy XYZ, and they don't want to sign an agreement. And I know that's something that, we have a question about, like, hey, the person didn't want to sign a buyer agreement. Well, maybe we didn't present enough value on the front end for them to feel like they trust us and really have confidence enough in us. I came from the teaching world, education world, so it makes sense to me. But even if you're not from education or teaching, maybe you're from marketing, maybe you're from tech, maybe you do pharmaceutical industry. At some point, you are educating someone. So use that same skill that you already have. A lot of us say, well, I'm not a realtor. I've never been in sales. It's XYZ. It's not about sales. It's about education. If I educate this person enough, they will take action on it. If you tell me, Tiana, if you go to the bank right now and say XYZ and they'll give you $50,000 as long as it's legal, I'm gonna go do it. Right? I'm gonna go do it. But I can't do it if I don't have the education. So a lot of it is educating your clients, not selling anything. I don't sell anything. Make sure there's no questions. Okay. Yes. All right. Strategy number five. You're now going to use the same guide, the same 3-page, 1-page, 2-page PDF, right? And now is making sense. It's getting the leads to convert. You're going to use it as objection prevention. If you already have information in your buyer guide about what you do and what the process is, once the person on the other end of the phone you're in that consultation has some kind of objection or um, like a mental barrier, you are better going to be able to address it because you already have the information right there. Excuse me. The biggest one is commission, right? Oh, like who pays your commission, or do I have to pay your commission? You can address all that because it might already be in your buyer guide. That's a great thing to add to your buyer guide. It's in my buyer guide. Fear of unknown cost. What I have to pay for this, who pays for the appraisal, who pays for the inspection, that's already there. Timeline anxiety, that's why I also include a visual of the map with like estimated time frames. Oh, this may take 15 to 20 days, or getting a pre-approval may take a week or so, because that helps them figure out for their own life how long is this process going to take. A lot of times on consultations, I'll say, hey, so okay, if in your ideal perfect world, when would you be able to close in your home by? And mind you, that's today's February 17th, 2026. Somebody would say, oh, like probably like December, or November. I don't want to rush myself, I want to give myself time, but probably the end of the year. That's what they say. Meanwhile, because I know that it doesn't take that long to buy a house, they don't know. That's a general population. They have no idea how long it takes to buy a house. I know. And I'm going to say, well, majority of my clients from the time we have their foundation, their credit, their savings, their income situated, the time from pre-approval to closing usually only takes about 45 to 60 days for my clients. Or you could say 60 to 90, whatever the case may be. And then I go, wait, really? Oh, so I can have a house by the spring? That gets them going. Right. And it's the truth, but it gets them going because now you've made it even more real for them and you've settled that anxiety. And again, this information is already in the buyer guide. And then offer competitiveness concerns. When you say together, your lender and I will discuss the best strategy for XYZ, that already addresses that. So they may not even ask these questions on the call now, because you've already prevented that. You've been proactive. How do you start your buyer guide? And is in a book you're using. There is a buyer guide in the PC folder. It's under the documents and presentations or documents folder, and it's already there. And again, you can either use that. It may be, I don't remember off the top of my head. It may just have no name at the bottom. So if you download it and like put it in Canva, you can add your email, phone number, and stuff like that. Or you could just look at it to get an idea and then create your own. But that's exactly where I would start for my buyer guide. And this also solves that problem of feeling like, oh, if they ask me a bunch of questions I don't know the answer to. Well, I've already dealt with their objections in my buyer guide. So some of them objections they may have on the phone, well, now I don't even have to address them. And now they're that much closer to signing the agreement because they don't have to go back and forth with me about what about this? What if I don't have enough money for commissions? What if it takes too long? Already gave you that information. And of course, I can restate it if they do ask, but because they already have it, they may not. Number 6, buyer guides, qualify, readiness, and motivation. This one, y'all gonna love this one. Because again, you're like, oh, I get so many people who aren't really serious. They aren't really serious. They aren't really serious. Sometimes maybe they were serious. We didn't ask the right questions. And that's a little hard pill to swallow. We're not asking the right questions. We don't have the right tools and supports. We aren't sending them a buyer guide before we got on that phone. So it's not maybe they weren't serious, but maybe they were, and we just didn't have the structure to move them along to the next step. Right. So this is why we're going to almost like pre-qualify them, not in a lending or mortgage sense. That's not our job, but almost qualify them. Like, okay, are they ready for the next step, which is sometimes a pre-approval, right? If it's a buyer. So you want to make sure you have these checkpoints or questions. What timeline are you actually comfortable with? And again, you can say that question however you want. I say like ideally in your perfect world, when would you like to have, settle in your home? You want to ask them what monthly payment feels safe versus stretched for you. I always explain this to my clients or, leads, depending on where the conversation goes. But hey, when you get a pre-approval, the lender will look at all of your assets, your financial assets, and tell you what number they come up with that you could feel comfortable paying for. I said, but ultimately it comes down, your lifestyle. So what number looks best for you? Realistically, because they're gonna say $1,000 sometimes, and we all love to pay $1,000 for a mortgage, right? But realistically, what number would look comfortable for you for a mortgage? Again, that's checking if they're ready. Have they started to think about that? And then what risk level are you willing to tolerate? So this is more so, I think, when a lot of my leads talk about purchasing in Delaware County. And they're like, the taxes, thinking about taxes, are you really willing to kind of have that risk of the taxes being higher? So maybe your money doesn't go as far as maybe something in Philly, or are you willing to stay in Philly for a little bit? Like, what's your risk tolerance there? And if they say, you know what, hey, you do have a point about Delaware County taxes, Montgomery County being a little bit higher, I may go ahead and stay in Philly for a few more years, buy here, so then you can get to that point. This tells me you're ready. If you're having that conversation and you're having that thought process, you're more ready than if I'm not using my guide to ask those questions. So when people say, Tiana, how do you convert so fast, or how do your clients, close so fast? Because it's structured. I'm asking the right things at the right time. You can spot tire kickers early, the ones that want to waste your time. You can prioritize your serious buyers and structure better consults. 3 more. Strategy 7. I hope this is helping you guys. I hope you're seeing like why this all makes sense and why this converts. Having a buyer guide alone just created doesn't convert. But using it strategically, whether pre-consult, during the consult, after the consultation, this is how you convert your clients, your leads. Step 7, use your buyer guides as referral multipliers. I've had consultations where even on that consultation, I just met that person. They're like, oh yeah, and because it went so well and they're so excited, they feel more empowered, they feel confident and educated. They're like, oh yeah, me and my coworker were just talking about this, and I'm going to give her your number so she can call you too and schedule a consultation. That's how good it should be. All right, buyers who feel educated refer faster, 1,000%. Refer better qualified clients, because if I'm on that call and I'm telling you these are the things we need to get you qualified, now when they go refer you to someone else, they're going to say, hey, oh yeah, she did say you need a 640, or they're going to kind of almost pre-qualify, if you will. They're going to share that information, so the person they refer is better educated about kind of what their consultation will include. And they refer with higher trust. They're not just referring you just because. They're referring you because, hey, this was really good. She knew what she was talking about. And she was talking about them grants, XYZ. They have a higher level of trust. Are you still using intakes, Tiana, or are you doing consults only? What you mean, Charlie?
Well, I think I meant to say, do you use like intake forms
Do I
or
use
just intake forms?
intake? Oh, so you're saying like, do I just do a form, or do I always do consultations on a call?
Right. Or both.
Yes. Oh, I always do calls. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the only form they do before they get to me is just scheduling the actual call. But yeah, that's it. Because to me, I find that, again, conversations, talking to them on the phone is going to win them over more than me sending them a form to answer questions. Like I just feel like that's a little bit more
Right.
robotic. But that's why I do it that way. Yeah.
But you must be writing a lot down as well to keep track.
The consultations,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or the information while we're on a consultation.
Like their information, what they saying back to you.
Okay, so yeah, so once they're scheduled Calendly, the information goes, well, I have it there, their information, their phone number, email address, phone number, whatever they put in is there, but also it goes right to my command. So
Now,
then,
I
and
mean,
this
like,
is,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I mean, like their responses to what you
Okay.
asked.
Perfect. Okay, so then that's the next part. So boom. So because I use, and this is in another video, but okay, they schedule in Calendly. I use something called Zapier, and they do have a free version. It's called a Zap. It kind of gets a little intense, but you just connect. So I would connect Calendly and Command, so that whenever somebody schedules a Calendly, the zaps or go straight to my command. That way, when I'm on a consultation call, all I have to do is open Command, go to my contacts, find that person's name, and when I'm on the phone with them, that's where I'm typing all my notes. Because before I used to just be like typing the notes in a Google Doc, y'all, and there was no way to track anything. Everybody's name was everywhere. It was a hot mess. Versus if I just go ahead, when you're in command and you go to their contact profile, it says notes. It's a section that says notes. I just
Gotcha.
type it right in there. That way, whenever say for instance, maybe I have a 30-day follow-up call with them in 30 days, before I get in that call with them, I go back to their notes, because Lord knows I don't remember. I go back to my notes. I
Right.
say, okay, this is what we talked about, such and such and such. Exactly. So this is how you keep everything. Again, a system. Not because the phone call is great, but how do I follow up with them? Did I put them on a smart plan? Like all that stuff. So I have my command open and taking notes while I'm on the phone. Yep, that's a great question, Charlie. I'm happy to
Thank
answer.
you.
You're welcome. How do you do that? Zapier, there is a video in the drive. I definitely taught a class on this, one or two, about it should say something like systems. It might even have Zapier in the title. So if you go into the Google Drive and type in Zapier, the class should come up. But it's super easy. It sounds a little more complicated than it really is, but it's a really good way to like because what I found was that I was doing consultations and it came up in Calendly, but then I would have to manually type back in all their information into my command, and I was like, I don't have time for that. So now it automatically goes there. Can someone drop the link to the drive, please? Once you are you onboarded yet? Yes, okay, then you should have access to it. What I'll do after we hang up, I'll send you an email and then I'll make sure you have all the links that you need. Let me write that down actually. I'm gonna take a picture. Okay, perfect. All right. I'm just taking a picture so I don't forget to send that to you. Perfect. Okay. All right. We got 10 more minutes. Almost done. All right. Oh, yes. Before we leave this page, you would ask, who else do you know that would benefit from this guide before they buy? So I wouldn't ask it like that because that's just not my style. I might say something like, is there anyone else that you feel like, that you feel would, is there anyone else who you know who is looking to buy a home? That's more so something like I would ask it like that. Omar. Okay. Okay. Same thing, Omar. Let me put that in there. Patrice, you definitely have access to the drive, but I'll just double check everybody. Double check. Wait. All right, let's see. Boo, boo, boo. Okay, here we are. Top 5 mistakes realtors make with buyer guides. This is what you don't want to do. But we all can relate, probably. Number one, writing generic process only content. And I love this one because what some of us are going to do is go to ChatGPT, type some things in, and then plop it right into our buyer guide. The information that you're going to get may not be wrong, but is it said in your razzle dazzle? You know what I mean? Like the same way I'll tell you guys, hey, here's a question, but this is how I would ask it. It just makes a difference. So the process is important. So if step one is get pre-approved, if that's your step one of your buyer guide, that's fine to have like, okay, this is what you do. I'll connect you with some lenders. That's fine. But make sure that it sounds like a human, right? And make sure that, again, like it's a strategy.
You have to be authentic. It has to sound like it's you.
Exactly. I'm telling you, that is one of the I can't stress how much I've gotten so much feedback about the authenticity of how the process goes. Number two, treating guides as passive handouts. Don't just slide it in a folder and give it away, or just say, hey, I'll send this to you, and just email it after a home buyer workshop. It's a great idea to send a home buyer guide after the workshop, right? Because now you maybe have their contact information, or honestly, before a home buyer workshop would be more helpful. But either way, um, don't just send it in an email and say, here you go. You want to get them into a conversation. Not sounding like authority. I know if you feel like, okay, I haven't had any closings or I haven't had a lot of closings. Am I really a top producer? Am I really, a wonderful real estate agent? You are. And then you just need more experience to show it. That's it. You just need more opportunities to show it. You can be amazing at something and just may have not had enough opportunities to make it happen. So that's how your content has to be. You have to come across as authority. I know I wouldn't want to buy a 6-figure purchase or house with somebody who kind of like, maybe you could do this. Kinda. You gonna have to tell me a little bit more about that. Why is Tiana the one that I should make this transaction with? Okay. 4, not integrating guides into their consult flow. Again, if you don't bring it up in your appointment, you are just missing out on so much value. And then over educating without directing action. So you give information and then you tell them, okay, this is the step that you take. The same way, hopefully, our classes feel to you guys like, okay, Tess and Tiana gave me the information, but I also have action steps, right? I can implement something after this class. That's the goal. And you have to be really explicit about it. Sometimes we'll feel like, well, it said it in my guide, or a duh, when they think that you're supposed to do this, you'd be surprised. So be really clear. Okay, once we get off this call, these are the next things I want you to do. I'm going to send you a follow-up email, and that email is going to be a link to do, like, be really clear on the phone, and then send a follow-up email. Because I've been in classes where I've got a lot of good information, but sometimes it's so overwhelming, I forget, like, okay, what was I supposed to do next? So be really clear about what the next steps they need to take are. Favorite page, screenshot this, type this, do whatever you have to do before you get on the consultation. Because you're probably thinking, Tiana, what exactly do I say in this email? And again, you can customize it to your own, but this is an idea of what you could say before the consultation via email. Before we meet, I want you to review this buyer guide. It answers most questions buyers usually ask after their first offer. When we talk, we'll focus on strategy instead of basics. And again, you can put your own razzle dazzle on it, but that's the little blurb you're going to put when you email them this guide. All right, then you get on a consultation call, you hang up, you send a follow-up email. Or, before you hang up, if you want to ask this question, what part of the guide made you realize you wanted professional guidance instead of guessing? Thank you. The way I usually word this is something like, what was that light bulb moment that made you realize you were ready to schedule a consultation? Right? See how much of a difference that makes me saying it like that? And saying like that? Because again, people see realtors all the time, but what made that person say, hey, no, I need to book a consultation with her today? And that's important for your business as well, because whatever answer they give you, I'm not Sunday. Whatever answer they give you, you can use that in your business as well. Why would they just love me out? So if they say, oh, because I like the content that you made about grants or whatever the case may be, okay, that's the information people are paying attention to. And what can you say as far as the referral? We already talked about that. I would say something else like, oh, do you know anyone else who's looking to buy or, sell their house right now? And then follow up with, you can say like, here's my contact information or send them a link, like something so that the person can actually take action. Don't just say, is there anybody else? And they say, oh, yes, my sister is. And then that's it. Some agents might say, okay, yeah, give me your sister's number and I'll go ahead and give them a call. It just depends on the bias. I probably wouldn't say that unless it's somebody who I feel like is, I don't know, that's the kind of level we're on. But because it's a little odd to say that, give me your sister's number and I'll call her right now. It's a little salesy to me. I don't like that. But saying something like, okay, in my follow-up email, I'll have my contact info. You can share that with your sister or something like that. And here you guys go. I'm still going to send it in the drive to those of you who said like you weren't able to access the drive or you can't see it. But here is the guide right here. If you scan the QR code, this is the template. All you have to do is customize it. So we made it one step easier for you guys. So take a picture of the QR code. You'll see the buyer guide. You can go ahead and customize it. My TCOT code.
Thank you.
See, we be listening. We try to listen. If y'all like this, I will try to implement it. Because I know a lot of times after class, they say, oh, okay, like, Tim, that's the resource. Like, where is it? And like, we'll tell you guys to go find it. But this might be helpful as well. I want to make sure everybody has time to take a picture of that if they need to. Okay. How do we feel about that? I'm not even gonna say any questions because again, I got to practice what I preach. How do we feel about utilizing the buyer guide better now versus however you've been using it prior?
Much better. So that
Good.
now my question is, because I started doing a buyer questionnaire this weekend, so would I use the presentation instead of, or I can use them both?
When you do what?
So that initial, that they start having the interest and talk about, yeah, I'm thinking of, but they haven't made any commitment yet that they're ready to 100% go forward with the buying process. So I think the guide is a great tool in that next step to convert to an actual consultation appointment.
Yeah, I see.
Oh,
I mean, I could see why that makes sense. Like if that's going to be something you add to like your link in bio and they're able to download the buyer guide. And then once they read that, then they book a consultation. So that is another way to use it as well. But what I would do is use it both. So I would use it in
okay.
my link because again, just because somebody downloaded it from the link like in my bio,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who they are, right? Like there's no, I mean,
Right.
there are ways, but you wouldn't know who that person is. So even if maybe that person today downloaded the link, but then next week they schedule a consultation, still send it in your pre-email to that person because you wouldn't be able to know if they downloaded it or not. Like if that's the same
Right.
person.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great question. Yes. Yes. You could use it as many places as you want. Some people put the buyer guide in their email signature. Right.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
right? Like there's so many, but the key is that we have to make sure we're implementing it. You know what I mean? Like having
Right.
it in your signature is one thing, but like, are you talking about it? Are you actually utilizing it? That's where things convert.
Exactly. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Perfect, perfect. Okay, I know it's 1 o'clock, so if that worked out, hopefully you guys got some ideas. Your wheels are spinning. What can I do? How can I implement this? So get that started. And then tonight, if you're not a buyer lover like me, and I think everybody should be, if you're more listing focused or want more sellers, we'll be talking about how to do the same thing similarly with sellers later, and how to book more listings using the seller net sheet. So we'll talk about that later.
Thank you,
Great. Thank
Tiana.
you,
But you are
Tiana.
so welcome. I hope this was good. I always forget to take a picture of the thing on Zoom. So hold on. That's my life. Okay. See y'all later. See y'all at
See
7.
you at 7.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.